All I have for you is a word. Tenet.
Christopher Nolan, one of the most influential and enduring directors of all time. Most of the modern day cinemas has been influenced by this director. Only a few directors can continuously make you entertained by stunning visuals, but keeping the artistic value as well. Christopher Nolan simultaneously does that in each of his films. His films are not only blockbusters but best to be described as intellectual blockbuster. And this constant track record has made a loyal audience all over the world that people would go to the theater just with the tagline, "It's a Nolan film." I mean, who else does that? Who else mixes up her subconscious mind with a military base, transcending information by Morse code through a tesseract, playing with the time? No one does that. Nolan here fits in very easily in each of his films, making accessible to each of his audience. No matter how mature and how confusing or how ambitious the project is, people are gonna watch it anyway. The place where he is right now, there will be acclamation as well as criticism in whatever he does. But the Tenet is by far his most polarizing film. Lots of people has lots of issues with this film, like the characterization, character developments, no backstories, sound mixing, all kind of problems. But Interstellar had the same kind of problems also, but they have this thing like, okay, the Interstellar had some kind of center, son daughter son relationship, and also father daughter relationship in it. So it has a score, it has a core meaning, it has a core emotional base in it. Also in Inception there was something about emotional touch that Cobb with his relation with his mall and all the thing that makes this film a very eccentric, but the Tenet doesn't have any of it. So people had some really tough issues with the Tenet. Some audience had to leave from the theater due to its inaccessibility, but how much legit all these things are. Nolan loves to tell the story very much subjectively. Tenet is no different, but the complex plot and stunning visual often overshadows the emotion transition. When your brain is trying to find out what really happened in the last scene, the core scene comes and you are left by, which makes the scene cold and emotionless. The director actually respects you in such a way that you would take the same journey with him, which is a very bold move that doesn't happen often in modern day cinemas. It was also my prime concern after watching the first time in the theater, but after revisiting it again, I was less excited about the visuals and more focused on the story and its character. In Memento, Nolan puts you in the very same shoe of the protagonist, and this trick is very much use of subjective storytelling helps us to understand our character properly and humanizes the character more. Nolan uses his trick again, and we learn about this world through the eyes of protagonist. We ask the same questions about the strange behaviors of the characters and the world around him. This is why the actor protagonist seems more selfless, as we can feel the sacrifices that our protagonist is making, the confusion, we can all feel that. Same with Daniel's character. This is actually tells us how we are captivated within the hands of system, how silently some of our heroes among us are trying to make things right, sacrificing their identities and friendship. Kate's character is entangled with a toxic relation. All she wants is her freedom from our antagonist Undersator. Undersator, we see him as a dying person. This is where his toxic masculinity starts. If he can't have her, no one can't. This is the motivation that ultimately leads him to become a strong antagonist with resources, and we can actually feel the cat's helplessness and seek for redemption, the monster he is married with. As Satyr gets closer to the sadness, more rude and obnoxious he becomes, which is ultimately the destruction of the present world that also includes his wife's and son's life. Kate's killing Sator is the ultimate redemption as women, which stands for women can do much more than without the expense of opposite gender. This concept of women empowerment is pretty rare in the modern action films. When they are tried to put in portrayal, there becomes often cringe or more like a fun.
They've got real cinema on the run, so to speak. It's very difficult for films of substance or attempted, how should I say? I don't want to use the word personal vision, but I have. It doesn't mean it's not entertaining, right? But these projects, where can they be shown? Where can they be shown if the theaters are taken over by the well-made, beautifully made, animated pictures, in a sense?
Nolan often describes his film as experience, but is this experience is like Marvel movie watching experience as Scorsese told? As Stanley Kubrick once said, a film is or should be more like a music than fiction. It should be a progression of moods and feeling, the theme, what's behind the emotion and the meaning, all that comes later. This is very much told about the filmy abstraction that most of the people are not introduced with. For artists like Nolan, films are the medium of expressing their art through it. The small details that Nolan puts in every scene, which is very common and normal to get overshadowed and get lost. We often don't care about these smaller details and layers and in-depth meaning. Tenet is perhaps Nolan's most complex film, and this is the most definitive reason why single viewing criticism about this film is unfair. Tenet is the film which the world isn't actually ready for. At very first viewing, people watched it through adrenaline pressure, technically being blown away. People get disoriented by its own pace. I guess Tenet showed its true masterclass of Nolan. Tenet makes us realize how time manipulates us, why we should be careful about our present for a better future. It uses the same character over character motivation, deliberately keeping the information away from us to create puzzle and to solve by us. But the fact is, we're not actually enduring these bold moves like the sound mixing to enhance the experience, which is overshadowed by most of the people at the very first viewing. They actually makes Tenet ahead of its own time. Cause is it really abstraction things that most of the people gets lost, and it is very common for most of the people for the films like we're watching and all that stuff, which makes this kind of film less interesting and less kinda cold. And yep, that was it. I think Tenet is a very good film. Well, I would not say that this is the most masterclass film that was made by Nolan. I guess The Dark Knight, Memento is far ahead of this film, but it's not a bad film at all. Some people had some really cold issues with this film, and but not. This is a very good film, I guess. After repeated viewing, and in coming times, Tenet will be more acclaimed time by time. Thanks for watching. Peace.